Have you seen those annoying supporting or weakening questions on the digital SAT? These are one of the two types of command of textual evidence questions, and I've solved so many of these questions and have found a simple process for them that works every single time. If you don't go about these questions using this two-step process or a similar process, you're basically going against what the question is asking you, and that is probably the reason that you keep on getting these questions wrong. This question says, which finding, if true, would most directly support the researcher's hypothesis? The first step in our two-step process is to read the claim and ask ourselves the simple question when reading each line in the text, and that question is, what did the text want us to understand from this sentence? We ask ourselves this question so that we can dumb it down, and the reason why we want to dumb it down is because the way you could predict the idea of the correct choice is to understand the hypothesis, conclusion, or claim because the correct choice just restates the idea of the hypothesis or claim. However, I see lots of students don't even try to understand the text and the hypothesis and go straight ahead into checking the choices. This makes them think that there's more than one choice that could be correct, and that is why they get these questions wrong. So, this is a medium level question, and let's go ahead and solve it. It says, although many transposons, DNA sequences that move within an organism's genome through shuffling or duplication, have become corrupted and inactive over time. Okay, so what did they want us to understand? They want us to understand that most transposons don't work anymore. Those from the long interspersed nuclear elements line family appear to remain active in the genomes of some species. This is saying that a specific transposon called line still works in some animals, unlike the other transposons. In humans, they're functionally important within the hippocampus, a brain structure that supports complex cognitive processes. So, line in humans is found in an area that is important for thinking and processing information. When the results of molecular analysis of two species of octopus, an animal known for its intelligence, were announced in 2022, oh, alright, so they did a test on two types of octopus, and octopuses are very smart animals. The confirmation of a line transposon in Octopus vulgaris and Octopus bimacaloids genomes prompted researchers to hypothesize that that transposon family is tied to a species' capacity for advanced cognition. So the researchers hypothesized that line could be tied to brain power or intelligence. This means that you want to select the choice that supports the idea that line is tied to brain power or intelligence, which is what the researchers hypothesized, using the results of the study. Which study? The study of the two octopuses relating to intelligence. The second step in our two-step process is to compare our prediction to the correct choice. Choice A says, the line transposon in O. vulgaris and O. bimacaloids genomes, I'll just refer to them as the two octopus species. The line transposon in the two octopus species is active in an octopus brain structure that functions similarly to the human hippocampus. This directly supports the hypothesis that line transposons are linked to intelligence by showing that line are active in a smart part of the octopus brain, just like in humans. Choice B. The human genome contains multiple transposons from the line family that are all primarily active in the hippocampus. This says that line are in humans within an intelligence related area of the brain, which we already knew, but it does not mention the connection between line and octopus intelligence. Choice C. A consistent number of copies of line transposons is present across the genomes of most octopus species, with few known corruptions. This shows lines are common and functional, but does not mention any connection between lines and octopus intelligence. Choice D. O. vulgaris and O. bimacaloids have smaller brains than humans do relative to body size, but their genomes contain sequences from a wider variety of transposon families. This is just a random fact, and this is off topic. It does not show any connection between lines and octopus intelligence. Now, the next question is at max difficulty, so questions don't get harder than this. This question is also a supporting question and it asks which finding from the study, if true, would most directly support the researcher's conclusion. Following step 1 in our process, we need to dumb everything down as we read it, or we can ask ourselves, what did they want us to understand as we read the text? Alright, almost all works of fiction contain references to the progression of time, including the time of day when events in a story take place. What did they want us to understand? They want us to understand that most stories mention what time things are happening, like whether it's morning, night, or some exact time. In a 2020 study, Alan Kim, Charuta Pithe, and Stephen Sciana claimed that an observable pattern, so visible pattern, in such references, this is talking about the time references, reflects a shift in human behavior prompted by the spread of electric lighting in the late 19th century. So, the invention of electric lights caused people to do things at different times. Okay, so overall, this wants us to understand that the researchers say they found a pattern in how time is mentioned in books, and that this pattern may show how people's habits or actions changed after electric lights became more common in the 19th century. The researchers drew this conclusion from an analysis of more than 50,000 novels spanning many centuries and cultures, using software to recognize and tally both specific time references, that is, clock phrases such as 7 a.m. or 2:30 p.m., and implied ones such as mentions of meals typically associated with a particular time of day. So the way they figured this out is they used the computer software to scan lots of novels to find out what time people did certain things. For example, what time they ate breakfast. Now, we want to select the choice that supports the idea that after the invention of electric lights, people started doing things at different times, using results from the analysis of 50,000 novels. For example, and this is completely made up, people used to eat breakfast at 5 a.m. according to old novels, but after the invention of electric lighting, they started eating breakfast at 8 a.m., for example. The second step in our two-step process is to compare our prediction to the correct choice. So pause the video and take a look at the multiple choices and see which one is the correct one. Alright, now let's look at the multiple choices. Choice A says, novels published after the year 1800 include the clock phrase 10 a.m. less often than novels published before the year 1800 do. Mentioning 10 a.m. fewer times does not clearly show that people started doing things at different times. Therefore, this choice is wrong. Choice B. Novels published after 1880 contain significantly more references to activities occurring after 10 p.m. than do novels from earlier periods. Yes, this says that people started doing things at different times after the invention of electric lighting. But let's see the other choices. Choice C. Among novels published in the 19th century, implied time references become steadily more common than clock phrases as publication dates approach 1900. Just like choice A, mentioning implied time references does not clearly show that people started doing things at different times, meaning this choice is also wrong. Choice D. The time references of noon 12 p.m. and midnight 12 a.m. are used with roughly the same frequency in the novels. This does not show people started doing things at different times, so this is the wrong choice, and choice B is correct. This next question is also at max difficulty. However, this question asks for the choice that weakens the conclusion, hypothesis, or potential explanation in this case. Again, we need to follow step 1 in our process by dumbing everything down as we read it or by asking ourselves, what did they want us to understand as we read the text? Again, we need to follow step 1 in our process by dumbing everything down as we read it or by asking ourselves, what did they want us to understand as we read the text? Many governments that regularly transfer money to individuals to provide supplemental incomes for senior citizens, for example, have long done so electronically, but other countries typically have distributed physical money and have only recently developed electronic transfer infrastructure. Alright, so they wanted us to understand that some governments have been sending money electronically for a long time, like to help older people, but others only recently started using electronic systems and used to hand out cash instead. Researchers studied the introduction of an electronic transfer system in one such location and found that recipients of electronic transfers consumed a different array of foods than recipients of physical transfers of the same amount did. This wanted us to understand that when researchers looked at a place that switched from cash to electronic payments, they found something interesting. People who got money electronically bought different kinds of foods than people who got the same amount in cash. One potential explanation for this result is that individuals conceive of and allocate funds in physical money differently than they conceive of and allocate funds in electronic form. According to the potential explanation, the reason why might be because people think about and spend physical money differently than they do of electronic money, even if the amount is the same. Now we want to select the choice that weakens or goes against the idea that the way people receive money, cash or digital, can actually change how they use it. The reason why we need to go against the idea of the potential explanation or the hypothesis or the claim or whatever you call it is because the question is asking to weaken the potential explanation. So the correct choice will follow the idea that the way people receive money, cash or digital, does not change how people use the money, and it will tell us this using the results of the study. Moving on to the second step in our two-step process, which is to compare our prediction to the correct choice. So pause the video and take a look at the multiple choices and see which one is the correct one. Choice A. Recipients of electronic transfers typically spend their funds at a slower rate than recipients of physical transfers did. This choice does not weaken the potential explanation. This choice supports it. This is because the choice is saying that the way people receive money affects how they use it, which supports the potential explanation, but we want a choice that weakens it. Therefore, choice A is wrong. Choice B. Nearly every recipient of an electronic transfer withdrew the entire amount in physical money shortly after receiving the transfer. If people who got electronic money just turned it into cash, then both groups were basically using physical money. That means they use their money the same way. They both use physical money. So choice B could be correct. Choice C. Recipients of physical transfers tended to purchase food about as frequently as recipients of electronic transfers did. This is kind of off topic from the potential explanation because this talks about how many times people would buy food, and this doesn't disprove the explanation about how the form of money affects what they buy. Choice D. Some recipients of physical transfers received small amounts of money relatively frequently, while others received large amounts relatively infrequently. This talks about how often and how much physical money people received, but doesn't compare to the electronic group. Also, it doesn't challenge the idea that the form of the money changed spending behavior. Therefore, choice B is the correct choice. This was the first type of command of textual evidence questions. If you want to learn about the second type of command of textual evidence questions, which asks which quotation best supports a claim, then click this video.